breaking news story. Israel just killed at least 10 people, wounded many more on that flotilla that was leaving Turkey, heading to try to deliver some much-needed goods to the Gaza Strip. Now, Israel claims that it's not necessary because, they let in such and such amount of goods every year into Gaza. See that kind of mentality among these people? We let in such and such odd humanitarian goods. I'll tell you what, if the people of Palestine were trying to impose that kind of, we let in a certain amount of goods to our Israeli territories of Israelis that we keep in this open-air prison, the Israeli people would be taking up arms overnight. And yet still these hypocrites find a way to make themselves feel good about their treatment of the Palestinians and make themselves think like they're actually really are being fair to the Palestinians by quote-unquote allowing in a certain amount of humanitarian goods, which, by the way, the United Nations says amount isn't even 1/4 of the necessary requirement of just strictly humanitarian goods in Gaza. This leaves the Israeli government, this leaves Israel in a very precarious position. Recently they've been having quite a falling out with Obama and with the Obama administration, with America. America has been the one sole reason why that Israel has been allowed to continue to do what it is doing. America has been not only supporting Israel, but providing the money, military equipment, technology, everything for this to be a reality. But recently, America has had a falling out with Israel. And so that's very interesting. I feel that this incident of at least 10 people dying is just going to further strain the relationship with Israel. It's just going to further isolate Israel in the eyes of the international community. Up until recently, the Turkey military and the IDF, if I'm not mistaken, were doing joint military exercises. From what I understand, the Israeli Air Force was allowed to use the Turkish airspace to conduct military exercises because Israel doesn't have enough airspace. So they were pretty buddy-buddy, as because, of course, Turkey is seeking to be seen in the international community's eyes as being more of a secular democracy. But now Turkey itself is a more secular Western democracy, leaning towards the West and towards the left more. But now, maybe not so much towards the left. I take that back, because there's an incredibly strong nationalist sentiment in Turkey, but that's completely not even part of the story. Or the topic at hand. But now, as I was saying, Turkey can afford to exercise a little independent exertion of force, a little bit of an independent of a policy break in the region, because it is probably the key player in the region. Turkey is that uniting factor between East and West. Turkey is the light of at least in the Western eyes, the light of what an Islamic country can be. It was secularized about 100 years ago by a military coup, basically, after the Ottoman Empire, and they built this country, Turkey, out of the gravel of the Ottoman Empire, and they steered it in a much more secular and Western-leaning position. So now, after all this time, it can afford to be a bigger player in the region. And it's chosen to express this, in different ways. When you had the 22-day Israel siege, you had the Turkish prime minister, when they were at that financial conference in Davos, who was arguing with the Israeli prime minister at the time. I believe it was the prime minister, I think it was Ehud Olmert. I believe that was who it was, was arguing, saying that you're a murderer. He was saying how in the Bible it says, "Thou shalt not kill." And he ended up actually walking off stage because they weren't giving him enough time to respond to what the Israeli prime minister was saying. Oh yeah, we just defending our this and that. The Turkish prime minister got up and walked off the stage. So Israel is really, really straining its ties with its neighbors with this kind of action. It's straining its ties with its neighbors, straining its ties with its allies. It's almost like it wants to see itself ostracized in the eyes of the international community. This is so fucking dangerous. With this move, Israel, I believe, is the closest major Western industrialized power to make some significant and serious cultural, military, financial, and societal moves and shifts towards a totalitarian fascist state. People talk about America being a totalitarian fascist state. Just nothing compared to Israel, man. You go to Israel, when you're 18, you get conscripted into the military. You join the military and you're forced to go there and inflict suffering on the Palestinians and make them feel degraded. That's a total brainwashing system that they got going on over there. In terms of their foreign policy and the way that their perspective is of other people, they're just racist and bigoted peoples. A great majority of predominantly the right wing of the Israeli populace, they're so friggin' they feel that they're like the special chosen people. It's just absolutely insane. Until they get over that, they're going to keep having these kind of problems. That's really what it all comes down to. If you really want to cut the bullshit and get straight to the issue, the problem is that the Israelis feel that they are special. They feel that the rest of the planet is Gentiles. If you really go in and read the Talmud, which is an adaptation of canonical, supposedly, law into the times of the Babylonian captivity of the post, I believe, the Second Temple period. If you look at the Talmud, which arose out of these very interesting and special conditions that the Jews were in captivity in Babylon, if you look at the Talmud, it's just crazy. It talks about raping little kids and the best way to steal and kill Gentiles and what's right, when it's right to kill somebody and all this. It's insanity. I think that Judaism has wandered, Jewish people, the Jews in general, have just wandered so far away from the path, and this is just the extremity of that. When they were on the path, they were extreme righteous ones, and now that they're off the path, they're an extreme unrighteous ones, and until they get over this racial karma of being God's chosen people, until they get over this racial karma of treating the other races of the world as their own, slaves, their servants, until they get over that karma, they're just going to keep bumping heads with the world like is happening right now. And another thing, they're misusing this language, Hebrew. They're misusing this magical alphabet and this magical language, Hebrew. They're misusing their magical religion in a way that's completely dark, in a way that's very, very dark. So I just wanted to make this video because I feel that this is an incredibly important event which just happened just very, very recently, just hours ago, I believe. And I wanted to help spread some awareness of the fact that I believe that this is going to lead to some kind of scenario or some kind of hella increased tension and hostilities over there. Not only towards Israel, but back from Israel towards the Arabs, as they feel more isolated. They feel even more and more isolated. They draw closer and closer within themselves. They feel even more threatened, and it just snowballs. It just snowballs and snowballs until finally the events of Revelation are fucking played out. Wake up, people. The events of Revelation are playing out before our eyes. The shit is being set up, Some's going to happen where, just like it says in the book of Revelation, that there's hordes and hordes of people which invade Israel, that perhaps that event, all it would take was them to have some crazy movement of settlers or right-wingists there who storm the Temple Mount and tear the shit down, the Haram al-Sharif, tear the shit down and build the second temple up. That would cause a holy shitstorm in the Arab world, would cause millions of mujahideen to descend on Israel. Israel would pop nukes all over the place, and the Middle East would turn into a glassy wasteland. That's where we're headed. That's where we're really headed if we don't overcome this fear. If we don't overcome this fear, this is really what it is. It's fear. The same old one.